Lissa Albert. Normally that would be where Stuart is, but when I invited Lissa to join us today for this particular topic, for those of you who are new to the Rant Network, welcome. This podcast is about bringing you unfiltered, uncensored conversations about a wide range of topics. This podcast is dedicated to giving you folks a platform to express your opinions. We've been stifled a little too much lately. This is your platform. We would love for you to share your thoughts, experiences, and ideas and hear from a variety of perspectives and awesome opinions, including what Lissa is going to bring into us today. Join us as we dive into the latest news, pop culture, politics, and so much more. And boy, oh boy, are we going to dive into the news here in Canada. So from the rants of the absurdity of modern life, and this is absurd, to discussions about the deeper issues affecting our society, the Rant Network has got you covered. Sit back, relax, enjoy as we begin. So in Lissa, I lived in the late 90s, in the early 90s, I should say, in Toronto. And when we heard about this lunatic called Paul Bernardo and his wacky doodle wife, Karla Homolka, we could not believe the extent that this crazed guy got away with raping teenagers. Then Karla Homolka, his wife's sister, who was a teenager, and then two others. It shocked the crap out of us in Ontario at the time. And I got to tell you, it unnerved me to hear that almost 40 years later, Paul Bernardo is moving, and our government just doesn't care. He's moving from one place to another. Now, folks, for those who do not know Lissa is now the newly elected president of the Pierrefonds-Dollard Riding Association for the Conservative Party, and is also a blogger and social media activist. And let me tell you, she also worked on the campaign last year for the Freedom Riders. And I've got to tell you, Lissa has been a big supporter of our podcast. But I wanted to invite Lissa because she wrote a lot of phenomenal pieces on Facebook and what have you, going after Justin Trudeau and the Canadian government about the incompetence, about how they've handled Paul Bernardo. So Lissa, tell us a little bit about your feelings about why this whole Paul Bernardo thing is a freaking disaster, Canadian style.
Okay, first off, the obvious, because he actually got moved to a medium security prison. This is a guy who should have been behind bars for the rest of his life, and maximum security, no country club, no Netflix. This guy deserved the worst of what he could have gotten. So all of these years later, our public safety minister, Marco Mendicino, he allegedly did not know that Bernardo was going to be moved. He only received word from the corrections services, I think he said, a day after it happened. A little bit of reporting, and it actually came out that his office knew 3 months before Bernardo was to be moved. Now, why is this a problem? Everybody says you don't politicize the correctional services. It's not a political entity. However, as public safety minister, it's his job to keep the people safe. And knowing about this, I mean, even the fact that he didn't tell the public, he didn't tell the families of the victims who found out and were shocked to know that the killer of their daughters was being released into a country club prison. So this guy is asked question after question and denies the fact that he knew. First, he denied it, that he knew in advance, that he only found out a day after. Then he comes out and says, well, it was a mistake by my office. Oops. Is that how it works these days? Is that Canadian politics? He doesn't take any responsibility. As you know, David, question period in the House can be pretty feisty. And every shadow minister, every conservative, even Bloc ministers got up and said, what is going on with this country? Who is taking responsibility? Who's going to own up to it? And who gets fired for this? And so far, all they're saying is, well, the Conservatives don't care about climate change.
Well, it's funny because, and that seems to be Justin Trudeau's, and what I like to call King Justin's mantra all the time, is that, his court of his ministers, they're Teflon. They can do no wrong. We've seen numerous scandals in the Trudeau administration. We've seen numerous flubs. Had this been a conservative government, not only would Justin and Jagmeet Singh been all over, Pierre Poilievre, but the media would have destroyed Pierre
100%. They would have
Poilievre
been
and the Trudeau.
calling for impeachment, even though we don't even have that process in Canada.
It's true, but and it's funny because a couple of days ago, Mendocino says, "I dealt with it internally. We're okay." But Bernardo, who, by the way, if you want to read, and I mean, it's gross to say that he took his sister-in-law, who's 15 years old, raped
Aided
her
by
while
her
sleeping,
sister.
aided by his
Yes.
his wife and his sister, to go and rape her and then to essentially kill her. And he repeated this 2 more times. I mean, this man is a creep. The man is disgusting and should be incarcerated for life. Instead, like you said, he's going to a country club, and all our government would say is, "Oops."
Yeah.
I think this is just an indictment, and I know, Lisa, how you've expressed your feelings towards Justin. It's an indictment of the lack of leadership that this country has, but also the lack of intestinal fortitude by the media to go out and attack Justin Trudeau when necessary.
There have been pieces, and I'm shocked to read some of the pieces in mainstream media who are saying this is a pretty bad look for the government. Does Mendocino get thrown under the bus? I don't think he will. Michelle Rempel, who can be really fiery in the House, actually got up and went there. She said the only person this prime minister has ever fired was Jody Wilson-Raybould. Does he only fire the women? Which was
well, no. He fired only the people who don't listen to him.
Well,
I mean,
that's
she
it.
was a woman.
That's it.
She was an indigenous. She was a fantastic minister. She held her ground.
Yeah.
And Justin doesn't like, again, when you're the king, you don't like to be opposed.
Right.
And she sat there going, "No, it's a Canadian value." And yet you went ahead and said, "No, I'm going to pander to voters," which is Justin's fabulous way of doing things. And look, he's going to stay in power as long as Jagmeet continues to, suck on his whatever to keep him in power, so that Jagmeet gets what he wants. But for the first time, we saw Jagmeet and Pierre stand together and say, "We're against this." But is Jagmeet going to take down the government to send a message?
No, he won't.
No, of course
No,
not.
he won't.
Of course not.
And the thing is, the government is walking a tightrope here because it's not Marco who stands up in the House. He'll answer a couple of questions, then he lets his surrogates do it. Mark Holland, who is the parliamentary secretary of some sort. This is the guy who comes to work looking like Willy Wonka in a purple suit and bow tie. I'm not kidding you. Just look him up. He's there. This guy stands up and he has to walk the tightrope of course, we feel horror at knowing that this monster is being released into a medium security prison. But we want to work with the Conservatives. Where are the Conservatives? Well, where have they been the past 8 years?
No, but it doesn't make it doesn't, because this is just the game that they continue to play. Is like, this is what we've seen here in Quebec with Legault. We see here with Trudeau is, make my enemy my real enemy as opposed to my friend, and therefore I could shift the blame from me to them. Don't blame me. It's the Conservatives. They don't want to cooperate. And the media, buys into it. I mean, what you saw last week, Bell Media cut out 1,200, jobs, and I got to tell you something. There's no media left in Canada. I mean, you're going to tell me that it's the National Post? You're going to tell me it's the Globe and Mail, who's as anti-conservative as you're going to get? Or better yet, the CBC that just wants to destroy the Conservative Party. There is no real media here to hold the government accountable for these actions. They're going to get away. Justin will continue to get away. He will be the first minority prime minister, I believe, to serve a complete 4-year term, because he's going to go unopposed. Who's going to oppose him?
Yeah, and he doesn't take accountability. And even when we try to hold his feet to the fire, the Jagmeet, like you said, he'll go up to the line and he will never cross it, despite the horrors of this, despite the victims' families just re-victimized over and over and over again. Apparently, this move is under review, whatever that means. But by that time, there's going to be another scandal they're going to sweep under the rug too. But this is.
But there is one, and I'll tell you. Last week they released that Justin was committing to climate change and a spend towards climate change, and of course he is not meeting his numbers. But he's going to find a way. But no one is holding him accountable. You go to department by department. We've seen it with his communications people giving money to terrorists. We've seen, and anti-Semites. We've seen one. Find me a clean department right now in Trudeau's government.
Well, that's why they keep rotating. That's why they keep taking questions for one another, because the department can't answer, so they'll stand up for their friends. But that's what the left is, right? It's all about cronyism. It's all about, you're my
Well,
friend, so I'm going to protect you, and how dare anybody attack you? Accountability
well, that,
is gone in this government. And like you said, the media, but you know what, David? The media is changing everywhere. I think what's going to happen now in the States and in here, either it's already happening or it will, is streaming media,
mhm.
just like the Rant, just like websites that are independent and putting out segments like this to bring the public up to speed. Who's reading a newspaper anymore? By the time you get the paper on your doorstep, it's already hit the internet. So I think we hope to have some, journalists with integrity. I don't know if they even exist
Well,
anymore.
there are, but they're going to be stifled because if they don't conform in with the new, censorship laws that
BC 11, BC.
again, King Justin wants to control the message. And my normal partner in crime here loves to say we're becoming like the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
We're becoming like a communist state
Yep.
where you're just going to have one party system. You're going to have one control. You're going to control the communications. Last night, my father and I were talking about 1984, and I said, all we're missing are the gray uniforms, but we're getting closer and closer to a society that is conformist, that yells at you, that you don't agree with. So, every time you want to, if you really want to upset the conservatives, and, last week, Pierre-Poilievre did release a statement about what he would do, as if he, when he's in government with Paul Bernardo. I was waiting for, in Pride Month for Trudeau to go, yeah, but you're anti-gay, so you don't like gay people, so we're going to go after you because that works.
Or abortion.
These messages, or abortion, these stupid remarks work. And unfortunately, the media people love this garbage. And they go, oh, you see, all conservatives are anti-gay. And I'm like, no, they're not.
Pierre Poilievre's father is married to a man. Pierre Poilievre's father came out as gay and has a husband. So you want to tell that guy, and the guy who's deputy in the House and will be probably his deputy PM is Melissa Lantsman, who is a gay woman in Toronto.
Yep.
But it's all about the touchy-feely, David. It's all about how many heartstrings can we tug. Facts be damned.
But think about the fact that you had this serial rapist and killer of teenagers. And that doesn't shock Canadians. That doesn't run. I'm telling you, Lisa, when I lived in Toronto at the time, we were all ill. It took
here too.
It simply dominated the news media like nothing I can remember, because the depth of the how violent it was and how he got away with it again and again and again, and it questioned the police, and a lot of jobs were lost. A lot of people's heads rolled.
Yep, as it should. Back then, I don't know what would happen now.
No, today the question would be, is there enough diversity in the police department?
Who's going to get away with it? Because how many boxes did they check? But Canada's not used to crimes like this. That's why it was so shocking, because we don't get the kind of headlines that we see coming out of other countries, coming out of the United States. And so, yeah, it shocked us. But you know what the problem is? 40 years have passed between then and now, and it's no longer a news story. It's just a guy who's getting moved from a prison. So what? What are we supposed to do about it?
But if you remember when Karla Homolka did get moved,
and she was hounded by people who didn't want them in her neighborhood. I didn't want her in mine.
Absolutely, I wouldn't want her in my neighborhood. I wouldn't want her. Listen, I believe in people being, helped, or to get to a certain point where you listen. There's a statute of limitation. There is enough jail time where you could sit in jail and eventually, hopefully, you could become back. You can reintegrate into society. I've seen no proof from Karla Homolka. I'm scared of Paul Bernardo coming in.
And he's in Quebec, David. He's in a medium security in Quebec. What happens when they release him on day parole, like they did that guy who chopped off the poor bus victim in I think it was Edmonton or somewhere.
But it simply doesn't matter to Justin Trudeau.
No, he does not want to take accountability, because if he does, he might have to sit in the house for more than 12 minutes.
So I know we talked a little bit about Paul Bernardo, and while I have you here today, I want to talk to you a little bit about C-13. And that legislation is, we're both two English people from the province of Quebec. We're both proud Quebecers. We both live not far away from each other.
Right.
And we've had numerous conversations about, our life as a minority in Quebec. What are you hearing from conservative circles about C13? Because there's a lot of anger about why some conservatives even voted for C13. So what's your take on this?
I'm disappointed that it's actually gone through without very much pushback. As we know, there's one MP in the city of Montreal who stood up against it, a Liberal MP, but it was too little too late, because when this bill was in the talking stages and when it was in the introductory stages, every single person should have stood up and said, why don't we have equal rights for two languages and not prioritize one over the other? And it's really disappointing. We're living with the double whammy, because we're living under François Legault with his lovely, push out the Anglos, and now the Conservative government. I know that during the 2021 election, during the campaign, a lot of people asked about François Legault's Bill 96. And every proper candidate, I hate to say it, from the Liberals to the Conservatives, could not speak on that because federal does not interfere in provincial matters. But this has gone to a federal level. Why they had to do it in the first place is, again, why did they have to put in the censorship bill? Nothing was broken, but they had to fix it.
Well, hold on, Lisa. I mean, let's slow down here. First of all, C13 is about pandering, right?
Oh,
It's
always,
not about
always.
we're like think about it. What exactly did Justin just do right now? He sent a message to all of Quebecers
right.
that I am protecting you.
That's right.
I'm your grand protector at the expense of the English community, which is what you like.
That's right.
And what the result of that is, and some people will disagree with me on this one, is if you heard what happened last Friday when a bus driver yelled at an autistic child on a bus to speak French. This is what you've created here. You've created this narrative that we are the enemy of the state of Quebec, and what you've entrenched in Bill C13 is
it's okay. It's all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the censorship one is to stifle me and others who disagree with King Justin and his court, and will continue and will try to shut us down. And believe me, Facebook has shut us down a few times because we disagreed with, public thinking, and we challenged it, we questioned it. You're not allowed to question it. You're not allowed to do these things. Justin is trying to control. I'll tell you something. What irritates me, and I know quite a few senators. And I looked at the vote Thursday night. It was 60-5 with 5 abstentions to pass Bill C13. Tony Lafreda from Montreal, yep. I thank you very much for voting against the bill, along with Judith Seidman and Larry Smith, Victor O and Dave Richards. 5 abstentions were Michel Audette and Pierre Dalphond of Quebec, Brian Francis, Elizabeth Marshall, and Kim Pate. I know others, and I'm shocked to hear why they voted. And these are conservative senators. These are conservative, MPs. And I get the majority of the bill was about trying to protect French outside of Quebec, but you threw us all completely under the bus.
Exactly. You can't protect French outside of Quebec and then say, well, we're not going to protect English inside of Quebec, because it's just a language. It has nothing to do with, language should not be politicized. And yet they have. But it is. They have for years and years. They have. But that's what they did. Exactly. They threw us there because they overreached. And
but my question to you, Lisa, I mean, listen, there will be a campaign.
Yeah.
And you and I have both worked hard to campaign together, and the people are misinformed. We know that they're misinformed.
Uninformed.
But this time around,
yeah,
uninformed and misinformed, absolutely. This time around, when there will be a next election, how many people are going to yell at the candidates? And I don't care from which party. You voted for Bill C13. As an Anglophone, you threw me under the bus. What do we answer to people?
Well, here's the thing. In September, the Conservative Convention is happening in Quebec City. The beginning of September is when policies are going to be put forth onto the floor for debate and discussion, and then become part of our platform. I don't know if there's a language policy. I hope that there is, because this becomes the Conservative platform on which we run. And like I said, I don't know what's going forth. I really do hope that there were some EDAs who put forth a policy saying that French can be protected outside of Quebec, but English has to be protected inside. All languages matter.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. All languages matter, and I don't
So
know
I don't know
why
what they're
English.
going to answer because we don't have an official platform until it all gets voted
Yes,
on, and it'll be up on the website, on the Conservative website.
right.
But as of now, you're right. I'm disappointed that they didn't stand up for Quebecers, for English
They didn't.
Quebecers.
They didn't. And there are a lot of people who will say that Pierre Poilievre, and I'm a supporter of Pierre's, pandered to the French vote. And again, English voters in Montreal, or the English people of Montreal, again
They
lose out.
remember. They remember.
And they, well, they remember, but then they vote like stupid. Okay, I'm sorry,
You're
because if they
right.
really did, to keep voting for the Liberals, and is like it's Pavlov's dog at this point,
Yep.
and it drives me crazy to hear, oh, the Conservatives are anti this, anti that, and it's like, but you keep voting for the people who throw you under the bus.
That's right.
The Liberals have done nothing for you, zero. Like you think of what you had 10 years ago, before Trudeau, and what you have today, and you ask yourself, are you better off? And the answer is no.
No, but they'll
But they
still
voted
vote.
again.
I call it vote by rote because that's all they do. They just go and they look for the big
Well,
L and they vote for it.
well, but that's it. And in our writing, as you recall, um, they voted with the eyes closed because you had an anti-Semite, a pure overt racist, um, who doesn't even live in the riding, who traveled during COVID when they were told don't travel during COVID.
Yep.
He's done nothing for the riding. When we have the flood victims in Pierrefonds-Dollard who were promised help to raise the barriers at that end, he's nowhere to be found.
And then he
And they
lied
voted
about it.
for
Then
him.
he lied
And
and
then he lied
said,
about
yeah,
it. That look what I did, right? And this is what amazes me is how and this is what this by the way this podcast is about, is to try to help people go, wait a minute, let's sift through the headlines, because what you're seeing is not 100% valid. You are, as you say, uninformed, misinformed, and we need to help you to see that there is a second option here.
Here is my
The scary.
stance on politics, David, because when I started going door to door in 2015, I would have people say to me, oh, I don't follow politics. And I would say,
Mhm.
okay, you don't have to follow politics, but politics follow you. Every single thing that is in your life, from your home to your work, to the language you speak, to the food that you eat and the prices you pay, everything follows you. So pick an issue that's important to you, look it up, get yourself informed, and vote according to the person who's going to stand up for that thing that is important to you.
I think that's a brilliant statement, and I've echoed something very similar to my kids and to their friends as they saw how David, you're such a political person. And I said, no, I want a better life, and if I don't fight for my better life, if I don't vote for my better life, I'm going to end up with crap.
Right.
And what we're seeing here is a government who wants to seize power. They got a taste of it during COVID. They got a taste of it, as the majority. I don't care what you say, even though they're a minority government with
It's a
Jagmeet,
faux
they're getting what
majority.
they
Yeah.
want, right? And they are controlling and wanting to put a stranglehold to ensure that there will be nobody other than the Liberals in power.
And it's
That's
only
not
about the
democracy.
power. It has nothing to do with the country or the Canadians or anything else. I mean, all you have to do is look up Justin Trudeau's bar bill on his airplane every time he's jetting off, and you can say, okay, this guy is
Oh,
really in
come on.
it for the perks, even though he's a silver
Come
spoon
on.
baby, right? But this is the problem, and people don't understand that they have a voice and they can have an impact on their own lives, let alone what's going to happen in Canada. Because if we keep going down this road, I am afraid for our country.
We are done. We're fools to believe that
Yeah.
we're heading towards better
Yeah.
life. And again, like south of the border, let's blame others for inflation. Let's blame others for, the malaise. Justin printed billions of dollars to pay people to stay home during COVID, and now we're paying the price for it.
That's right.
Real estate prices gone through the roof. Thank you, Justin, for creating this inflation. What does he blame? Chinese investors who came into Canada who inflated prices. Not entirely wrong, but not totally accurate either.
No.
But again, let me blame somebody.
Yeah, exonerate
And
me. I'm a good person. It makes no sense but it does when you look at the guy who doesn't want to take responsibility, because the right person who would take responsibility might pay a political price, but the country wouldn't suffer anymore.
I liken Justin Trudeau to a teenager at times, whiny as hell.
True.
Will tell you today how life should be run.
Yeah.
You follow my words, not my actions, because I'm not responsible for my actions. see blackface, see Aga Khan, see going to India, see all
We
these
Charity
things that
paying his family
We
off,
Charity. Listen,
everything.
if it wasn't for COVID, We Charity, we would, I don't know where we would be. But again, all these things, and now the most recent thing with the Chinese interference and putting your friend in to do the investigation. How impartial were you? I mean, he was head of your
And
father's
nobody
foundation.
blinks an eye. The media thinks it's fine. The media it's already his friends, and they're propping him up. It boggles the mind. If this were a
No,
conservative hiring his friend to investigate him, we'd hear about it.
oh, we know, but Lisa, look, we're Prime Minister Harper said conservatives work 3 times harder than the liberals to get their message across because the liberal media wants the liberals, not the conservatives.
Exactly.
The conservatives deal with fiscal responsibility, the liberals deal with spending. I mean, again, I'll go back to a teenager. Teenager doesn't care about a budget. Give me my money. I want to spend at will. You, mommy and daddy, pay for it. I don't want to be responsible. Well, that's what Justin has done. He's created this, to spend himself out of what? I mean, and then later on, we're with higher prices. I mean, I don't know about your food bill, but my food bill is through the roof. My clothing, you name it, is all through the roof.
We shop
But what does he say?
differently because you just can't afford to shop anymore.
Right. And then he says, look, gas prices, I brought gas prices down. You brought nothing down. It has nothing to do with you. He's like Joe Biden. They sit there and they echo the same BS wording.
Well, they both had the same slogan, Build Back Better. How did that end up in Canada and the United States? Nothing is built, nothing is back, nothing is better. This is.
Oh, come on. We've built a bad country. We're better off moving away.
That's true. That's true. But you know what? You're right. A teenager is an excellent analogy for him because he wants to play, but he doesn't want any of the responsibility, doesn't want the curfew, and he doesn't want to be accountable to anybody.
No, and it's crazy. We have 4 by-elections today, one here in Montreal at NDG Westmount. It's a campaign that, like, at the end of the day, looks like Canadians are going to, according to all the pollsters, nothing's going to change yet again.
Yeah.
Same thing. So I wonder if when and if we're going to have an election, will things finally change? And so, Lisa, let me ask you last question before I let you go. Is this extended interview, and I thank you for really taking the time and doing this. Tell people why you are such a big fan of Pierre Poilievre.
Okay, I wanted him to run for leadership when Andrew Scheer got in. And I wanted him to run for leadership when Aaron O'Toole got in. And why do I like Pierre Poilievre? Because he's a straight shooter. Because he stands up in the House. He is fierce and he is fearless. He is as conservative as more conservative than any other minister that I can see in a viable candidate. Because, I mean, there are a lot of conservatives, and we've got a lot of conservatives here in Quebec, but they're not going to elect another Quebecer. Pierre stands up in the House and he says it like it is. He's got a wicked sense of humor. The man has a photographic memory. He can memorize his speech and then go out there and say what he wants to say. And it sounds like he's reading off a teleprompter, but he's not. But his heart is with Canada. And one of the lines that he said all through leadership campaign before he got elected as our leader was, I'm not running to take power. I'm running to give power back to Canadians. And to me, and I believe him, he has integrity, he has sincerity. And I told him one of our visits, I said, if your YouTube numbers are going up, it's all me. Because when I'm feeling a little bit down, I just go to YouTube and watch you take apart the Prime Minister, and it makes me feel all that much better. He is a straight shooter. He is as Harper ever was. And the tell is that Harper endorsed him, and he never had endorsed another leader. He endorsed Pierre. I think that he's the guy we need. I think he gets it. He understands what Canada needs. And he's the one that came up with the phrase, Canada is broken. And he may not fix it, but he's going to do his best. And that's what I like about him. He doesn't have a God complex. He stands up there and he says, I'm here for you. And he listens. So I really do believe in him.
Yeah, and you know what? Same here. I've met him numerous times, and I have to tell you, Lisa, I love what you just said, and it makes so much sense. He is the guy that hopefully Canadians will get to know him a little bit better than what the media has portrayed him, because they portray him as a Trumpist. I love when they do that just to discredit somebody. Let's label him with a Trump label, and he's automatically
Well, they're doing
Hitler
that because they're afraid of him. They're actually,
Wow.
You know what happened? You only draw flak when you're over the target, and he hits it every time. And they're shooting at him from all angles, but they're afraid of him
100%.
because they know that he's the guy who can bring Canada back.
Absolutely. Lissa, listen, I really do appreciate this extended interview.
It was a
Thank you
blast.
so
Thanks,
much
David.
for this. I'm so much. And for all of you, thank you very much for today's episode, tuning in to the Rant Network. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Lissa and gained some valuable insights into Canadian politics, as well as, Lissa's perspectives on the Conservatives and the way we are in Canada. We appreciate your support. Hope you'll join us again next time. We'll be back every Monday. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on social media. New website finally launched. Love to hear from you what you think. Share us your thoughts. Remember, send us your comments. We love to know more about the topics that matter most to you. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.